Okay, so Anthropic just released Opus 4.8. Now, this seems to be an incremental improvement over Opus 4.7, but this is designed for long-running tasks. But the most important thing is the features that they announced along with this release. They are introducing workflows, which will enable you to run Opus 4.8 for hours and days. This is the first time that they are actually reducing the pricing of the fast mode. We haven't seen that before. There's also an indication of Mythos coming to general population in coming weeks, thanks to their colossal deal with XAI or SpaceX. And seems like this is a model that is inspired by feedback from the community. With 4.7, there was a lot of backlash on some of the choices that Anthropic made. And with this release, they're fixing some. So they're bringing back the control to set the thinking mode or thinking budget. They're taking away the adaptive thinking, which is pretty great because now this gives you control back. So in this video, I want to show you what exactly was released and talk about what the future could look like. Okay, so this is the blog post introducing Claude Opus 4.8. Now, it's a pretty short blog post compared to what Anthropic usually puts out. The first thing that we're going to notice is that it's substantially better in some of these benchmarks compared to its previous iteration, although for some reason Anthropic is calling it incremental improvement. Now, I think at this point you don't really see, or you're not going to notice a big difference between the performance jumps. It's going to be just how the model responds and basically the model identity or behavior that is going to be different. So on agentic coding, SweetBench verified, it's almost 10 points ahead of GPT 5.5, right? Overall, it does really well on the benchmarks that they have reported. Now, Anthropic creates a really good coding model, and that is essentially their focus in this release as well. So in general, we have seen whenever these models are wrong, they are confidently claiming that they're right. And this is part of the hallucination problem. According to Anthropic, they are seeing that this model is substantially better in accepting when it's not confident or when it's wrong. Okay, so some of the new features that we're going to talk about in this video. One is dynamic workflows, which basically enables Claude to create multiple subagents. In this case, they are saying that it can spawn hundreds of parallel subagents for long-running tasks. This is especially helpful for something like code migration, which is verifiable, and at the end, Claude can bring everything together. Second is effort control in claude.ai and Cowork. So if you go to claude.ai, with Opus 4.7, they only had adaptive thinking, which you could turn on or off. That would enable the model to adaptively decide how much thinking budget to allocate to a certain task. Now they have brought back the control in terms of you can set low, medium, high, extra high, and max, right? This is something on which Anthropic got a lot of backlash because people were not able to set up the thinking token budget. And to be honest, even though with all the improvements these frontier labs have made, adaptive thinking is still really bad. So it's great to see that there is a lot more manual control now. Now, the third one is a messages API now accepts system entries inside the message array. Now, this is going to be critical for developers because normally if you send in a new message or try to update the system prompt, it breaks cache. That means you're going to be paying extra cost because those are not going to be cache tokens. I recently created a video on it, which I highly recommend to watch. Now, with this one, you can update Claude's instructions mid-task without breaking the prompt cache or routing the update through a user turn, right? This is going to be significant for developers. I'll probably create a video on this specifically because I think this is going to be highly relevant to anybody who is building on top of Claude. Now, towards the end of the blog post, there is a hint towards the coming of Mythos class models to all customers. So right now, it's only available to select customers through their project Glasswing, but seems like Anthropic with their compute is able to hopefully bring this soon to general population. We'll have to see. Also, interestingly, they say that one thing that they want to do is to bring the cost of Opus level models or a model with similar capabilities lower, which is going to be significant. I think Anthropic now has access to enough compute that they can actually do that. Now, in terms of pricing, so the pricing hasn't changed at all. You're going to be still paying $5 per million input token and $25 per million output tokens. Now, this strategy, I think, from Anthropic is very significant. Most of the other labs are raising prices now. Anthropic has had these prices up from the beginning, and seems like that probably was the right decision. So they kept healthy margins and also kept the expectations under control. Now the other labs have to increase prices, and we're seeing a lot of backlash on that. A good example of that is Flash 3.5 from Google. Okay, next we're going to talk about workflows, demos, and some interesting benchmarks. But first, somebody has to pay the bills, so quick word from today's sponsor. If you have been learning to build with LLMs, you probably have noticed that most courses stops at a notebook. JetBrains and AWS put together a 2 skill paths that go a step further. You write the code in PyCharm, train on SageMaker, and end up with a deployable endpoint on AWS. They reached out to sponsor this segment, and I spent some time going through path 1. So let me show you what exactly it looks like. There are 2 paths. Path 1 is build and deploy custom LLMs with Python in AWS. That's the one I went through. Path 2 is from ML to generative AI, which is more focused on building Bedrock-powered apps and RAG assistants. Both end with co-branded certificates from JetBrains and AWS. Each lesson opens directly inside PyCharm through Toolbox. So instead of switching between a browser tab for the course and your editor for the code, the task description sits next to the code you're writing. You finish a step, run it, and move to the next module from inside the IDE. On the AWS side, it runs in a prepaid sandbox account, so you don't have to set up your own AWS environment or wire up billing for this. You can spin up a SageMaker job, deploy an endpoint, and hit it from a Python script. The IDE projects and video lessons are free. You need Pro subscription for AWS Sandbox Labs. And there is a 7-day free trial if you want to try the hands-on part. Link is going to be in the video description if you want to explore the AI skill paths. Now back to the video. Okay, so a quick note on one of these benchmarks because they have highlighted this. So if you look at the agentic terminal coding, terminal bench 2.1, Opus 4.8 is 74% compared to 78% of GPT 5.5. However, there's a difference. So in here they say, in the footnote, we reported scores for all models using the Terminus 2 public harness. So Anthropic is using the harness that comes with the benchmark itself. GPT 5.5's reported scores with the Codex CLI harness is 84.4%, right? And the main thing that I have been trying to communicate in some of my last videos is that the harness that you use with the model is a lot more important now. So just by changing the harness, and let's say if they were to use Claude Code, they will definitely get much better results because some of these harnesses are not optimized for the models. Okay, so we're going to look at some quick tests, but first let's talk about the dynamic workflows in Claude Code. Now, this is a new feature that was kind of leaked a few days ago. I'm going to be creating a more detailed video on this because I think this is very critical. And the idea here is that you just assign a huge task with verifiable rewards to Claude Code. This could be a code migration, and then Claude Code is going to dynamically introduce workflows, which is essentially Claude Code will dynamically write orchestration scripts that runs 10 to hundreds of parallel subagents in a single session, checking its work before anything reaches you. Now keep in mind, if you're using a workflow, This is going to use a lot more tokens compared to a single call to the subagent, because it has its own orchestration setup, and it will decide how many subagents it needs in order to accomplish a task, right? Now, an example of this is going to be something like this. You can just say, create a workflow that migrates every internal fetch call to the new HTTPS client wrapper, right? So in this case, you just tell it something that can be verified, and it's going to create multiple subagents to accomplish that task for you. So some example tasks where you could use it. We talked about large migration. Maybe there is certain implementation you want to check twice, or code-based white bugs hunts. Maybe you want to run some optimization workflows. So this is going to be a really good use case for these new dynamic workflows. Okay, so one good example of this is rewriting Bun. So Bun is a company that, or a package that was acquired by Anthropic recently. So initially this was written in Zig, and they migrated it to Rust using dynamic workflows with 99.8% of the existing test suite passing. Now, this was possible because the Bun code is highly verifiable. And this is something I really want to make sure that people understand, is that when you are creating these systems, you want to make sure that your code is verifiable. There are unit tests that run for everything, and that is the way that the model can check whether the implementation is correct or not against an existing implementation. Okay, so let's talk about one of the first price drops from Anthropic in a while. So now fast mode for Opus 4.8, which gives you 2.5x speed, is now 3 times cheaper than it was for the previous models. So this is pretty great news, because fast mode really shines if you need quick implementation and you don't want to wait for the model to generate a whole bunch of code. Okay, so let me show you a couple of quick tests with this model. I'm going to use Opus 4.8 on high. This is the default setting that they recommend. And basically, we wanted to design and create a very creative, elaborate, and detailed voxel art scene of Pedagoga on a beautiful garden with trees, including some cherry blossom. All right, so let's run this. The first thing is that it doesn't really show the thinking tokens anymore, right? So I'm not even seeing the summarized thinking budget or thinking tokens, which is interesting. Second, it does inline tool call. So right now it decided to use the front-end design skill that comes within claude.ai, the web version, and it's writing the code now. Okay, first, it seemed to be, I guess, like a little faster compared to Opus 4.7. We will actually run this in Opus 4.7 as well, but I want to see what the difference we're going to notice if we run this on different thinking budgets. Okay, so unfortunately 4.7 is gone, so I'm using max now, and in this other tab I'm using low. All right, so the results are in. This is the output from Opus 4.8 high. It's actually pretty good. I kind of like that you can turn off on different features. Okay, so this is the night mode, and auto rotate is off. Okay, I think there is a moon somewhere in the middle, right? All right, now in comparison, this is the output from Opus 4.8 with max. Again, you have all the features. However, I think the creativity wasn't that great on this specific turn, because it doesn't really give you the control to spin it. Actually, not bad, because I think it also added cloud, right? So I didn't see the whole picture first, but overall, Opus is really good at design, and seems like it did a pretty decent job here. Now, here's the same thing with low reasoning. You can actually see the difference in terms of what type of UIs that it creates, but it has all the controls that you want. Now, this is a relatively simple task, but overall, I think it does a pretty good job at this. Okay, so this was a quick video on Opus 4.8. A more detailed evaluation is going to come in. I'm going to start using it in my own projects and will report back. Anyways, enjoy this new model. I think we are seeing an acceleration. This was just released after 40 days after the release of Opus 4.7. So we are definitely accelerating in terms of the release cycles. In terms of capabilities, we'll have yet to see. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.